Hello my floss tube friends, and welcome to a Stitch With Me video today. It is Sunday and I am just settling down to do a little bit of stitching today. It's been a while since I did a Stitch With Me video, so please bear with me. Today is fairly quiet for me. There's not much going on, so I finally found that I have a bit of a chance to sit down and do a little bit of stitching. So why not sit and stitch with you? So what am I working on? Well, I'm just about to start working on my Riverwalk charm. This is a Heaven and Earth design. It is the regular chart. And I started it back in, I think, late 2019, possibly early 2020. And I am working on, well, I've got about 36.96% done, so I'm very close to 37%, and I'm working at the moment in blocks. I can put up a picture on the screen to show you exactly the area I'm working on at the moment, and I'm kind of working down in what's called the snake method, which a number of people like to use. I was doing a few diagonals here and there, and now I have suddenly decided I want to do the snake method. You know how it goes with these things. You wake up one day and it's, I want to do this, and then the next day, nope, I want to do that. So today is the snake method, and I'm going to chat a little bit whilst I do my stitching. I've got my stuff around me, so it shouldn't be too difficult. And yeah, so nice, relaxing, easy peasy chat and stitch. So let's see. So it's been a while since I've done a Stitch With Me. So obviously I've been working on quite a number of my whips since whenever it was that I did the last one. So there's going to be different amounts of progress here and there, which I fully expected. So yeah, it does feel kind of a little bit strange. Feels a bit like coming back from a long vacation and not remembering what everything looks like when you get home. Something like that anyway. So I'm going to try and not bump the camera as I do this, because yeah, it can be tricky. So basically I'm going to talk you through what I'm doing here, as well as try to count. So you'll have to bear with me if I take a couple of pauses to try and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we are parking here. Because when you do this snake method, there can be quite a bit of counting involved, even though it's definitely more relaxing than doing the cross country, I find, because cross country I tend to have to count. Well, obviously you have to count wherever you're cross countrying to. So it's not even that easy to sort of relax even when you're doing cross country. I was working on this last night, and I seem to be in one of those states where I can't thread my needle. And it's not often this happens, but when it happens, it is really, really frustrating. Because normally, like on a normal day, I will thread my needle and have it threaded in like 2 seconds. And for some reason, since yesterday, and it is possible that you can attribute that to the weather, because the weather has been kind of weird. It's been hot and it's been humid, and maybe that's got something to do with not being able to thread my needle. I'm not kidding. But sometimes the weather can make a difference as to whether I can thread my needle quickly or not. And for some reason, it seems to be that they're getting a little bit frayed at the ends. But that could also be because I'm coming to the very end of the thread usage. Sometimes the last little bits at the end can be particularly frayed. Okay. So I'm snaking. This is a really interesting technique. I'm snaking, and I haven't actually snaked for a good while, actually. Not being funny, but what I have been doing when I do blocks is I've been doing one colour and then parking below, then doing another full colour and parking below. But at the moment, I'm actually quite strictly just working in rows. And I don't think there is really any rhyme or reason. It's just the way it happens to be flowing at the moment. Now, where is this colour that I need to get for this side? 3, 8. Oh dear, my colours are all mixed up. Oh, excuse me. And I didn't bring myself a floss tube drink, because everybody who floss tubes needs a drink so that they can, you know, not die from asphyxiation or from choking, because that is, you know, every time, I don't know, I've seen other people when we do floss tube videos, after a certain point we start coughing and it looks like we've all got some kind of plague, but really it's just called floss tube throat, and it's just that thing where you just can't breathe. You just start coughing in the middle of your sentence because your throat gets so dry. Okay, now something funny's gone on here, because that colour there, geez, I'm wondering if I've made a mistake somewhere. That colour there should not be there. Don't know what colour it is, but that is not the brown that I need. So I'm gonna, that's the danger with parking. You can often park things in the wrong place. Oh wait, that was the colour. I had highlighted the wrong, highlighted the wrong symbol. Okay, come back. Okay, let's go back again. Not off to a great start, are we? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to catch my thread into a little bit of a stitch at the back, and then later on I just go back and trim them. I've got something there, or I just hold the back and leave a little tail. Don't pull too hard, and then later on I'll secure it a bit better. Or mostly 99% of the time I just do the loop start when I don't have a tiny little thread like this. So what I'm doing is, again, still trying to explain this, I'm going across in rows and parking in the row below. It is slow, I will admit that. There's no question that it does feel kind of slow. It has that feeling that you're kind of inching along like across the floorboards. It does have that feeling, but you can't really make too many mistakes. And I tend to feel like I'm seeing, I was thinking about this the other day, and I was saying to my husband, when I was doing the diagonal and I was working 10 stitches across and I was diagonaling down, I started to feel like after a few weeks that I wasn't getting anywhere. And I don't know whether it's because it was diagonal or whether it was because my diagonals were getting so long. Maybe I should have been doing shorter ones, I don't know, but it just felt like I just felt like I wasn't seeing progress. And if I don't feel like I'm seeing progress, I have to say I do get a little bit discouraged. That is very true. And then I start looking for something else that does show me a bit of progress and things like that. So I do kind of have to be careful. But when I do, and at the moment I'm doing 20 stitches across all the way down, I feel like with the blocks I get to see more progress, because maybe it's because they end up looking squarer and all that sort of thing. I don't actually know for sure. It just, I don't know, maybe it's a trick of the mind thing. It just kind of feels that way. I may as well go along to the end with this colour now. Sometimes I put 2 threads of the same colour in both sides of these boxes because I don't want to stretch all the way across the whole 20 stitches with one strand, or the 2 strands that I'm using. But I'm trying to remember that I'm snaking, so I've got to park where I'm actually snaking, where I'm actually picking up my threads from. That's another thing to remember. So I do feel like that I am getting more progress doing the blocks, and I don't really know why that is, but if that makes me feel like I'm getting more progress like this, then that's going to work for me for now. Because anything that, you know, prevents me from losing my stitchy bug is going to be worth a shot, right? Because I noticed that I had started a fair number of knitting projects in the last month, and I wonder why that is. And sometimes I think, is it because subconsciously I am a little bit tired of stitching in all my Haeds, doing them all in diagonal? Am I getting a bit tired of it and not feeling like I'm seeing lots of progress? Because 10 stitches isn't very wide. Now you're probably thinking, well, why don't you just do the 20 stitches across in the diagonal? Well, I tried that and I found that it was just confusing me. For some reason, that didn't work for my brain. I can do diagonal, no problem. But 20 stitches across diagonal, I just felt it wasn't working for me. Where am I going here? 2, 3, 4, park there. So yeah, basically my tip is, because we all like to give a few tips, just do what you want to do, and as long as you're comfortable with it, nothing else matters. As long as you're comfortable with it, as long as you're enjoying what you're doing. And that's what happens to me. As soon as I feel like I'm not enjoying it, I have to change it around or do something a little different. And I'm probably, and you know, I wouldn't sign any contract to say that I'm never going to change my method on the same pieces that I'm working on. I would not say that I would stick with this or anything else that I do for the foreseeable future. I can't say that because I know by now, after a year or 2 or 3 maybe, it doesn't work like that. Things change all the time, and I think that's okay. I'm not, you know, too worried about it. I do get a little bit frustrated about things from time to time, but then I just try to, you know, I try to figure out what I can do to change that frustration, to make things a little bit more interesting again, or what can I do to get my stitchy bug back, or whatever it is, before I fall back to my knitting or crochet, because I think that's what I do. When I get a little bit despondent about something or frustrated about something, I go looking for different crafts to do. And whilst there's nothing wrong with knitting, I love my knitting, I don't want to be abandoning all my stitchy stuff, really. It's okay to take a little break, but I'm not keen on just everything sitting there for months and months because I'm just not in the mood for a diagonal, something like that. So I'll try and figure it out anyway. Okay. That one does get parked there. See, even something as simple as going in a row can really mess with your head. I'm not kidding. As in, challenge you. So aside from stitching, we have had the most warm few days I'm not sure it's lasted longer than a week now. I couldn't say that, but we've definitely had most of this week that we're in, sorry, because today's Sunday, has been exceptionally hot. And yesterday I went down I said to my husband and my son, oh, it's, the weather's lovely, let's go and get an ice cream and this, that. And, some family time together. So we all agreed to go and get an ice cream together. Oh my God, didn't that turn out like, I don't know, the Flintstones? So we end up going, and then one of us is too hot. So, and then then my son was like, oh, I don't want to go to, and I said, I want to go to the supermarket to buy this. And he's like, I don't want to go there. And we all end up, I don't know. It looks so nice in my head when I think about our little family outings. But when we get going on them, it's just ridiculous. The little bickering that goes on the whole way. Then we got to the supermarket and we're all, three of us, dispersing away from each other. Well, my son is 15 now, so he's earned the right to be, grumpy and distant at his age. So he might just flitter, go away and then go to a different aisle of the supermarket, and I'll be in a different aisle, and my husband will be in a different aisle, and all of us looking really miserable. Then it's like, let's just go and get the ice cream. So we go to the ice cream shop, and guess what? It's shut, and it's boiling, so we're all sweating away, and we have to walk up this great big hill to get home as well. So none of us are happy. We're all like ready to kill each other. That's what happens. We are ready to kill each other. And then we come home, and after a little bit, we're all back to normal again. So we didn't get ice cream at the end of it. That was the whole point of going. We kind of detoured to go to the supermarket, and we could have got ice cream from there had we known the other place was going to be shut. And you know what it's like when you're outside with the family and nobody can agree on what they want to do, and the sun's beating down on you, and you're just standing there kind of sweating and feeling like so miserable. And then we just came home and thought, that's the best place we can go now, because we can all disperse to our own rooms and recover. So I go straight off to do my stitching, and they'll go straight off to play their computer games. And then we've all had a chance to kind of demelt and get back to normal. It is actually so funny when I think about it. It's not nice at the time, but when I think back on it, it's quite funny. And yeah, I've got to try and get through some of these holes in the back. So it's getting difficult again to puncture some of this. And I know some people say, oh, that's tent stitch with 2 strands is terrible for being bulky and stuff. Well, I've actually completed an entire Haed with tent stitch 2 strands. I didn't find it that awkward, but for some reason, sometimes things just are awkward for whatever reason. But I don't know. I find that I get along with tent stitch on 25 count a lot better than I get on 25 count with the full cross. I find it actually harder to do confetti on a full cross. This is talking about myself and not other people. Maybe there's a select few that have the same problem, but definitely not talking about other people. I have difficulty doing 1/1 full cross in heavy confetti areas on 25 count with 1 strand. But when I do 1 strand and I do 22 count, which is just that tiny little bit bigger than 25, I find it a lot easier to get the needle through. It just has that tiny little bit of extra wiggle room. The only problem with 25 count is it's not possible, or I haven't seen it, any way of getting 22 count gridded fabric. I just can't seem to find that. The same way that you can get the 25 count easy guide, I don't get the 22 count. I haven't seen 22 count easy guide, and I'm thinking, why not? If you can get 16 count, 14 count, 18 count. I think you can get 20 count easy guide, even weave. Why can you not get 22 count easy guide? It just baffles me. If anyone can answer that question, please answer that question for me, because I still cannot figure it out. Okay, so I'm snaking from right to left now. So I am jumping a few of these stitches, and I'm not just going to park and then go back and do a stitch and then park and then go back and do a stitch, because I feel like if I did that, I honestly wouldn't have the will to live if I had to park every other stitch. So I am going with my colour at least halfway across and then parking, and then what I will do is probably pick up the same colour on this side and continue, because sometimes, you know, it's quite wide to be using one strand and going, for instance, if you've got a stitch right at the end here, 2 stitches at this end and 2 stitches at this end, I don't really want to carry my thread 20 stitches just to do the 2 at this end. So I will do the 2 stitches of that colour here, and I'll either park it somewhere or end it, and then I'll bring it over here and do it with a new strand on this side. Because 20 stitches is quite a lot to be carrying your threads, I think. So yeah, there's a fair few that I've seen that are doing this snaking method. Although I'm not sure it's as popular as cross country and Royal Rose and what's the other one? Diagonal. I'm not sure that the snaking one is the most popular, but I know that some people still do it. I was watching a YouTube floss tube video of Catherine. This is Handwork Maniac, and Catherine is Brenda's daughter. So Handwork Maniac is a channel which belongs to Brenda, and her daughter is called Catherine. She's called, also, or calls herself, Boss Daughter, and she did this great big Heaven and Earth design piece, which is just amazing, and I will link below. I don't think she's got a channel of her own, but I will link down below the video that I'm talking about. So she did a video talking about how she did her Heaven and Earth design and how she did this like snaking method, which is somewhat similar to what I'm doing at the moment. But what she did is she snaked by 10 squares, left to right, right to left, left to right, right to left, going all the way down in a column. And something's gone wrong here. No, wrong hole. And I watched the video and I thought it was great because all the tips she gave and everything was fantastic. And the only difference between the way she did it and the way I would do it is I probably wouldn't go in a column all the way down because I would be worried about getting column lines, although I have found that I'm not particularly prone to getting column lines. I've looked at my whip close and in different light settings and from behind, you know, behind different light sources, different areas and places, and I have not seen any lines. But I thought if I was to do columns all the way down in a 10 block, would I get lines? And I think some people might and some people might not, and it's more or less all to do with tension, which way you're pulling your threads, that kind of thing. But when I saw that there was a couple of people complaining about column lines, it got me all fired up again thinking about column lines. So as you can see, I wasn't doing column lines all up through here until I started recently doing blocks, and then I started doing feathering. So feathering is when you just do a few extra stitches on the side just to try and prevent column lines. And even though I've never had a problem with column lines, I have got column lines stuck inside my head now. For whatever stupid reason, I'm like but you never know if you're going to get column lines, and what happens if you just suddenly get column lines, and blah blah blah. So to shut my head up, I'd just been doing a few little feathery stitches out there, and now I feel less like that voice is just annoying me. So that's, yeah, it's completely ridiculous, but hey. So I should just trust the fact that I've been doing this for a while and I don't get column lines. But, you know, sometimes you get a nagging voice that just won't go away, even though you know that voice is not really valid. It's just trying to scare you, or more just try to irritate you. I'm going to cross over with this colour to the left side. So I've got the left side and the right side. That's the two sides. So yeah, check out her video because it's absolutely fabulous, and she really gives some good tips as well. And another person who did do a whole video, I believe, on snake method was Needle Ninja. She did a video showing how she does the snake method. So if you want to do this method and get a tutorial about it, I think it's pretty pointless in me putting a tutorial up, because there's tutorials up there that are just as good, that are there already, and you can watch them, and you'll be, yeah, you'll be good to go, because basically I'm doing more or less the same thing. I'm just going left to right, right to left, left to right, and it's surprisingly not that slow once you get going and you're not distracted with TV and other stuff. It's actually surprisingly good. I don't got any complaints about it. And it's not really, to be honest, it's not really that different from doing it the diagonal way, is it? Because you're still snaking. If I'm snaking on the diagonal, it's the same as this, except I'm just going in a different direction. I'm just going in a, you know, at an angle rather than straight down. So, but I'm still snaking. I was still always have been snaking down. Never do cross country now. I always snake down. So whether I'm snaking down like this or I'm snaking down in diagonal, it's pretty much the same. So I'm trying to be tolerant and not go, as Catherine put it, boss daughter put it, not, you know, go too far ahead on the path. Because if you go too far ahead on the path, it makes it all complicated. So if I start doing not just the row, if I don't start doing stitches, not just on the row that I'm on, but if I start coming down and doing a few others below, then I start forgetting whether I'm going left or right. It's like, well, which direction am I at now? Because there's stitches all over the place. So it actually makes it easier to know what path you're on. But for some reason, I have parked this one here when I should have parked it over here, but it doesn't matter. Even though sometimes, because of the way I've parked them, I should be going right to left now. I've parked it here, so now I have to go backwards. Or I can just go out and come back where I should have parked it, which is down here. So I have to pay a little bit more attention to which end of the row I'm parking at, which does mean a little bit of counting sometimes. Not a huge amount. There's always going to be some counting involved no matter what you do, so you can't really avoid it completely, I'm afraid. The only way you can avoid it is if you've got one big square of one colour and you know you don't need to count anything at all. You can just go ahead and do the whole thing. I'll pick up this one and carry on. So it's not going to be a long stitch with me, I'm afraid, because apart from the fact that I kind of lost my stitchy bug a little bit, just a little bit. I hadn't stopped stitching completely, but I just got a little bit, where's my knitting gone kind of way. I don't want to do particularly long sessions of stitching because I think that was getting to me a little bit. The whole sitting there for 3 or 4 hours, like I was getting all stiff. I felt like, the rest of the world has gone by and I've missed the boat. Like, where am I? What's my name? Kind of thing. So I prefer to do, or have started doing, smaller stitching sessions and then going and doing other things, like going for a walk, going to the park, coming back, doing some housework, having something to eat, maybe stitch again for another hour, then go and do something else for a little bit, and then in the evening come back and maybe do another bit of stitching, rather than spending long sessions sitting down. Because apart from the fact that my physiotherapist, because I've been having some physio for my sciatica, physiotherapist told me, whatever you do, do not sit on your backside for hours and hours. Don't even sit there for 1 hour, right? You have to keep moving, even if it's just get up and do a little walk around the room, anything, but just do not sit. And it's absolutely true, because even though walking too much can aggravate my sciatica, sitting too much can also do the same. So it really is it's a fine balance between pain and no pain. So I've had to really, since I started doing the physio, had to really be aware of how long I'm stitching. Am I stitching for, too long periods too often? Paying attention to that and trying to consciously do something about it rather than ignoring it and then just complaining about back pain. So that's also another reason why long stitching sessions are really out. So now it's just short 30 minutes, 40 at the most. I'm not going to go beyond that. And then we're going for a walk, or we're going to do something that requires us to move. And then we can sit down again if we need to. But it has to be a conscious decision, and I have to be on top of, how much I'm sitting, how much I'm walking, for my own benefit, really. Because it's so easy to sit there and stitch, and just time just disappears so quickly. Before you know it, like before in the past, I'd go and sit down, it would be 10 o'clock on a Sunday, and I'd be Sunday morning, and I'd say, I'm going to go and do some stitching. And then I wouldn't know anything until my husband called me and said, it's lunchtime, do you want some lunch? And I'd be like, what? It can't be lunchtime already. He's like, yeah, you've been sitting there for like 3 hours. I'm just like, really? I never would have guessed. But yeah, try to get off the chair after 3 hours of sitting. Then you really know you've been sitting for 3 hours. Okay, so I'm going to put a few more stitches in, and then I'm afraid that will be it for this session, but I will come back and do another one in the not too distant future, I promise you. I just need to get settled back into things, feeling a little bit unsettled about everything recently. I don't know why that is. Sometimes they say in astronomy terms that it's to do with the new moon coming in and going out, and some kind of esoterical stuff like that, which I don't understand, and to do with horoscopes and how it affects you and your mood swings and things like that. And you can be unsettled, or you can be more settled at other times. So yeah, that's a whole new different science I'm not getting into, but whatever it is, I have been unsettled. See, now I have to park this one all the way down here, because on the next row I'm coming back from the other direction. So 1, 2, down, which I find sometimes that can be a little bit of a pain, because maybe my stitch is just down here, or there's one stitch down here and one stitch over here, and I've got to park all the way over here to get that stitch before I can get the one on this end. So yeah, it swings and roundabouts. Every method you do, I think, is swings and roundabouts. There's going to be bits about it that are really frustrating, and there's going to be bits about it that you love. And you just have to find that balance. You have to find that kind of, kind of medium that you're going to be happy with, I think, basically. So that's me. And right now I'm happy with my blocks. Tune in next time to find out what it is I'm going to be happy with. But it's fine. I'm happy doing what I'm doing, and don't anyone dare tell me to stop doing the method I'm doing, because as long as it keeps me stitching, that is what matters, right? Because what would be worse? Just abandoning everything or changing my technique? I think abandoning everything would be worse. So changing technique, nah, there's no harm in doing that. And it keeps it interesting, definitely. So there we have it, Riverwalk Charm by Ruane Manning, charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. And I know a number of people are doing this, and if you're one of them, or if you've considered charting, if you have considered doing it yourself, or kitting it up, or you started it, or you're midway through this, I'd love to know. I'd love to know how many other people are doing this chart, because sometimes you feel like you're in your own little world with your own little design, especially if you don't see too many others doing the same thing. And after a couple of years, which it has been now, it's been a couple of years that I've been working on this one, I'm wondering how far have other people got compared to myself. So let's see. No goals, no plans, and I will have to come back at some point soon and show you what my non-plan plans if that's such a thing, my non-planned plans are going to be for the coming, the foreseeable future with my Haeds, because it does change again, like the weather. One day I want to do all of them, and the next day I only want to do one of them. So we'll see where we're going with that. At the moment, I'm kind of just working on this one, and I'm working on Home for the Holidays from Thomas Kincaid, because I have got really well into it, and I feel like I could possibly finish that this year, although I'm not going to make that a super gold or anything, but it's a possibility if I keep plugging away at it a bit more frequently, because it's a mini and they're a bit more doable than these regulars and supersized. So yes, thanks ever so much for listening, for joining me again, and let me know how you're getting on with your whips. It's always a pleasure to stop by and spend a bit of time with you. So thank you once again, and I will be back very soon. Take care.